It's
Hi, Jacqui.
really, really lovely to be here, and I am genuinely excited. I've read most of your first book, and I'm now, because I've only just discovered you, and I have now, it's just lovely to meet you to then discuss about your new book.
Well, thank you for coming. It's great.
So, it's called Beyond Sex and Soup. How did you come up with this title?
I was a bit embarrassed about the title actually, but what I wanted to do was I just wanted to, these are fundamental human necessities,
Yes.
sex and soup, but actually they're not enough for us because we're very complicated beings, and we take those as a given and then we start to explore. And the point of my book really was the way in which your problems, whether they're emotional or physical, are actually showing you the way. They're showing you a path that is unique to you, for you to explore.
Yeah.
And so it's, yes, let's have sex and soup. They are a given. We need them. But also let's go beyond that. And that path is your own personal spiritual adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great, and it's a fantastic title. It really sort of whets the appetite already, I think, for people, doesn't it? So you said in the past that your body is your teacher, and that you often talk about the language of the body. So can you just explain a little bit to us what does that mean?
So your body is your unconscious and your conscious mind, and obviously to function in the world we use our conscious mind, and we use our external senses, and we take the rest that governs the actual physical body for granted. So for example, if you had to figure out, how many hormones and how many nervous impulses you need to coordinate in order to go upstairs,
Yes.
you just never get there.
No.
So the whole functioning of our body we take for granted, but it is actually so well attuned to the point of us, to the bigger, everything that is non-physical in you. So everything that is non-physical in you is essentially who you are.
Yeah.
Because you are your thoughts, you are your memories, you are your feelings, you are your experiences and your interpretation of those experiences. And you don't remember any of that, or rather, no, I should say, nobody sees that is who you are.
Yeah.
We tend to think of ourselves as what we appear to be externally, and other people tend to think of that also. But in fact, we know that we are, the bit that really matters is the non-visible bit.
Yeah.
So the thing is that all of that is recorded in your body. Your body, some part of your body is registering every emotion. And you know that when you have a really sudden emotion like fear or panic, it will register in a part of your body. But what is not so well known is that your body also then records previous experiences and doesn't let them go until, and this is what I explain in my book, until your conscious mind actually goes and, if you like, relieves the body of that burden. Your conscious mind can go and visit a part of your body, discover through your imagination, which is incredibly vocal. It's an incredibly powerful communicator of the past, and your conscious mind can go to this part of your body, discover what's there, and decide to let it go. So it's like your conscious mind is the boss, but the real machine is the unconscious, which your body is, I would actually say, a part of. It's not the whole, it's a part of.
So this is when an illness can come up, or when something can happen to the body. You're saying that then you can go in and then work with that part of the body to find out what is the trauma, what is the memory.
Yes. So I use a map, and it's a map of the invisible, and it was arrived at through intuition, not by measurement, and that's the map of the chakras, and it's very well known. But there are other maps. There's plenty of maps of the invisible. There's I also use the Hawaiian map,
Okay.
which divides the body into father, mother and child, which is very, very eloquent. And if you lay the map of the chakras over an actual physical map of the nerves, of the nervous system, you'll see that the nexus, the wheels of nerves come out and they go into particular organs in your body. And each organ has a physical function, but it also has an emotional memory. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so you can use your access to the unconscious, which comes through meditation or through imagination, if you like, or just through feeling, to discover something about what that organ is telling you. It speaks in non-verbal language, but you perceive non-verbal effects.
Yeah. And do you always, if so, with the book, you're teaching people with the tools that they can use themselves? Is that...
This book, I'm teaching people how to deal with their emotions more than with physical things, because we've all got emotions and they come
Absolutely,
first.
yes.
And I mean, an emotion will create a tension, and that tension will lodge in your body, in your unconscious memory, if you like, and may emerge later as a physical illness, because your body is incredibly resilient and incredibly good at self-reconstruction, if you like, even when there is pain, even when there is difficulty. And it will go on wanting to recreate itself or wanting to return to normal, unless there is a persistent tension, which I would say is an emotional tension, that is not recognized and needs to be dealt with. So that's the physical source of, that's the non-physical source of physical problems. But before we get there, there has to be the things that we all experience all the time, like anger, jealousy, desire, unfulfilled desire, and all of those passions. And we have tended to think of those as caused by something outside us.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying in the book is, it is a co-creation. It is your reaction to the external circumstance, but the external circumstance is also invited in by you.
Yeah.
And it's invited in by what you are already carrying. So if you can use the external circumstance to see what you're carrying, to recognize what you're carrying, and allow it to leave, you don't actually have power over the other person or the other thing or the event, because that's only part of the picture that's affecting you. But you have huge power over yourself.
And it kind of gives you a little bit of freedom then when you're
Absolutely, because if you change that event in yourself, if you change that reaction in yourself and decide to let it go, you change your co-creation, you change what you're attracting.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you continue to attract the same thing over and over again. And you get to the point which I have got to many times where you go, why does this always happen to me?
Yes.
And the answer is because of you.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean about how you can actually use your problems to free yourself, to create a great pathway.
So, but with that, isn't there a danger that people might feel blamed for their problems? So if you say that they're all connected to their feelings, will then people think, oh, well, it's all my fault then?
I do think that some people feel blamed, and I understand why they feel that. But actually, growth is all about taking responsibility, because that's where your power lies. You don't have to have power. You're given your life, and you can start and just react to circumstances, and one day your life will end. And perhaps that's how you prefer to live. It wasn't for me, and I think the biggest difficulty is when you have a small child who suffers from some physical disease.
Absolutely, yes.
And you can't expect the child to take on responsibility in that way. And then I think it is difficult, because it connects, in my opinion, and my opinion comes from my experience of healing people, actually, not from anything else.
Yeah.
It just comes from what I see when I'm healing. It connects to whatever that child may or may not have been into in a previous existence, because I believe that consciousness is, because it's non-physical, is actually continuous. That doesn't mean that you have the same consciousness as the person who came before you, because when something ceases to be physical, it goes into a void and may then reconstruct as physical energy, but it wouldn't necessarily carry the same characteristics as before, but it might carry some of them.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think that when you have small children who suffer, there is a relationship between those children and their parents, which needs to be taken into account and might alleviate the situation. But it's not a question of blame, it's a question of taking an opportunity to deal with something.
And there's also a certain amount of curiosity, I think, as well. When you're talking about it, it just is curious as to, well, what is my body trying to tell me? What is the message? What is in this?
Well, I think the most exciting thing about this kind of work is that we tend to think of ourselves as having only 5 senses, and in fact all of those senses are there to keep us safe. And what I'm trying to explain in the book is that we all also have inner senses, and a lot of the time we know this, and a lot of the time we forget it. And the more you focus on your inner senses, the more powerful they become and the more useful they become. Your external senses are there to keep your physical body safe.
Absolutely.
And your internal senses are there to conduct you on your journey. And they are really, really powerful. Now, of course, you still need your external senses, because you still need your physical body, you still need the sex and the suit. But it's like you cultivate a kind of double vision. Yeah. So you use one when you need to, and the other when you need to. So it's like a knife edge between the two. It's a paradox, because they don't meet, they're not interchangeable.
Yeah. Which is something, when you was actually just talking about the double vision, you mentioned that you interviewed the Dalai Lama,
yes,
and said that now you get what he was saying those 20 years ago,
yes,
to do with the double vision and the paradox.
Absolutely, and the huge irony for me, so I was, at the time I had no idea. I wanted to do this very much, but I had no idea how lucky I was. But I was sat in a little room with the Dalai Lama and about 25 monks, and whirring fans, and me and 2 other women. One was from Radio Leh, which was the local radio station in Ladakh, and the other was from France Inter. And we literally knelt on the ground, because there was nowhere to sit, and the room was really, really crowded. And we just asked him questions. And I was working for the BBC, and I asked him a political question for my editors. And I said, well, what makes you think that the Tibetans would want you back in Tibet if you were able to go? Cheeky.
Yes.
And he said, when you are young, you see with one eye and you hear with one ear. And he said, when you get older, you see with two eyes and you hear with both ears.
Yeah.
And as I said, I really didn't understand what he was talking about. And the huge irony is that when I had a brain tumour, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years later, the first symptom of it was double vision. And that's how I felt there was a problem.
Yeah.
So this whole thing of exploring double vision was a physical reality for me. And effectively, that's what I've written about in this book. It's like, yes, it's all a paradox. It's very logical. It's like the way quantum mechanics meets physical mechanics. They don't actually mesh. Each one is entirely logical in its own way. And you, a human being, is a living example of how these two work together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's what the book's about.
Yeah. No, fantastic. And so you say that the emotional problems can be a pathway to an individual's happiness and fulfillment. So but how does that work?
Well, I think we all have tendencies, and an astrologer, a really good astrologer, would say, oh yeah, I could pick those up in your chart. But you don't want to stay there. You don't want to stay with your tendencies. You want to, if you can, evolve. I really like the phrase that Ram Dass, the American yogi, came up with when he described life as the curriculum.
Yes.
And if you don't do the curriculum, then you have to keep repeating it.
Yeah.
So if you can spot your challenge and deal with it, then that is a massive evolution. It's a massive route on the path for you. So emotions, like physical symptoms, they have locations in the body. And they're fairly obvious. And I in the book, I go through, in Beyond Sex and Soup, I kind of go through the energy vibrations of different chakras. And so anxiety is related to your experience of security, and that is primarily related to your relationship with mother and whatever she was going through, for example.
Okay.
So if anxiety is a perpetual issue, that's where you need to go to recalibrate your reactions and let go your emotional reactions to experiences you may have had, because what you find is that when you have siblings who grow up in exactly the same circumstances, they don't have the same emotional or physical problems. Each person comes in with, if you like, a recipe that comes from the previous consciousness, and they will react differently. So, for me, I go into the other end of experience. I reacted in a way that I could never logically have explained to never having lived with my father. But my brothers, who also lost living with my father when they were young, they didn't react that way. So it's a combination of your personal spiritual pathway and your current emotional experience.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, we are all individuals, even if, brought up in the same family, all the rest of it. It's fascinating. And one thing that I'm looking forward to in your book is that there is a secret in there from your grandfather, which you won't share, and you have to read it in the book. But just tell us a little bit about, obviously not the secret, but...
Well, it's just really, and you'll have to read the book to see what that secret comes to, but it seems to me that I just found these pieces of paper wrapped up in an old book that had belonged to my grandfather, that was about yoga, and it was published in the 1930s. And when I read it, I thought, I have to put this in a book, because what was considered secret is not secret anymore. And we are living in an age of massive exploration and massive expansion, but there are parts of our humanity that we risk losing if we don't remember that we are just physical human beings. We need what our ancestors needed. We need fresh air, we need physical contact with nature, we need physical contact with each other.
Yeah.
And if we don't remember that we're human beings, or we're animals who need sex and soup, we lose so much of our strength. But at the same time, we're in this wonderful age of possibility, and what was secret is, because it would have been misinterpreted perhaps by the uneducated masses, is now available to all of us, because we are all the educated masses.
So I'm looking forward to finding out what the secret is. So is there anything else that you would like to share about the book for people before we go, that you feel would be good to share?
I should warn you that it is about life, it is about living. There's an awful lot of the experience of looking after my mother while she was dying in it. One of the things that our ancestors experienced more than we did is the presence of death as a consistent reality in their lives. We have experienced it as a global humanity in the last couple of years, and but we're not used to doing that.
Yeah.
We're used to putting it somewhere else, and actually the presence of death makes you so much more appreciative of the opportunity and the energy and the life that you have. And so I don't apologize for putting my mother in it. She was a great character, and it just so happened that I was writing the book while she began to die. And she died at the ripe old age of 94 and 95, and had a fantastic life. And that informed me, because you don't ever stop learning.
No. And it's beautiful that your books have totally come from your very own experience of the personal journey of the brain tumour, and then the healing experiences with other people. It's lovely.
Well, that's, for me, that's what cements your learning, your own personal experience. And they say, there's an old saying, a yogi saying, I believe, which is to learn, read, to know, write, to master, teach. Well, I've started to teach.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Thank you.
So yes, thank you. And where can people get your book?
You can get it. So here it is, Beyond Sex and Soup. It's out now. You can get it at any good bookshop, Waterston's, Barnes and Nobles, any bookshop near you, or you can get it on Amazon. If you do get it on Amazon, please leave a review, because that's why we buy things.
Yes,
all right.
Totally. Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you.